Are we live? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're live.
Yep.
Wasn't
What's
paying
up,
attention.
everybody?
Good evening, everyone. How's it going? Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to check my email real quick just to make sure, in case Steve emails me or something. No, it looks like we're good. Oh, and here he is. Okay, hold on. We got an echo. Are you guys hearing that echo?
No, only you.
No, there's a big delay on my end. What's going on here? I think it's. All right, I'm going to bring. I think it's on Steve's end. Mr. Saka, how are you, sir?
Hey.
What's up, Steve?
So you hear the echo from me because I'm not hearing an echo. And how could you hear an echo from me when I wasn't even in the channel?
Oh, no, never mind. Hold on. I know what's
I'm just
going
saying. I don't know, but I mean, let me see if I can get this glare off me a little bit.
Here we go. All right. Everything's cool now.
I'm never going to get prettier. That's going to be about as good as it gets.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Oh, I dig that jacket you got on there. That's pretty cool.
What is going on with Robert's system over there?
I don't know. Rob, how much longer are you going to be playing with that door, man?
Is it just me, or I see Robert in your screen too? I mean, you on Robert's screen.
No, you don't.
All right.
All right. Are you done, Rob?
Sorry. I couldn't even see, dude. It was so smoky.
All right. So we have Mr. Steve Saka. Steve, I am down in the I don't know where he's at, but we've got Caesar from the Smoking Lead channel. We've got Robert. He's also with the the Smoking Lead channel, and then the three of us together do the Triple Cap show. And I am Vic, the High Desert Man. So it is very nice to meet you, sir.
Pleasure's all mine, gentlemen.
Thank you for coming on with us. Amazing.
But what else was I going to do? It's a Monday night. I'd just be working. So
yeah, get lit up here.
So what is everybody smoking?
I've got the Sin Compromiso Intrepido size right now.
let me ask you a question, Vic. Did it have a straight pigtail on it, or did it have a curly pigtail on it?
It had the little straight one, the little straight.
I actually changed that blend a little bit. I tweaked it a little. The one with the curly pigtails is the modification. The straight was the original. It's one of those things where, a year after the fact, you smoke it and then you go, hey, I could have done a little better. So I very rarely do I go back and fix something, but that one was kind of important to me because it's a size I like to smoke. So I went back and fixed it. But depending on your perspective, I may have not made it as good. You may actually like the one with the straight better than the one with the curly, but in the future, the straight ones are never going to be made ever again. So.
Oh wow! Well, I've got I bought a box of these in 2019. This was I don't remember where it was on my list, but the number 5. The number 5 was, when I reviewed the number 5, I said it was perhaps the best cigar I had ever had in my life, and it was just a sublime experience. It was amazing. And so I went into Phoenix. They didn't have the number 5. They only had these. So I bought a box of these, and I didn't like it as much as the number 5, but it's still a really good cigar.
That was my opinion. It wasn't that it was a bad cigar. I just didn't like it as much as the number 5 or the number 2 or the number 7. So I wanted to get it to the best it could possibly be.
Okay. What about you guys? What are you smoking?
I'm smoking the Sobremesa Brulee Blue. My
You
number
like
one of the year.
Still haven't had that one.
It'll be okay.
Rob, you haven't had the blue yet?
Just another.
No,
You'll get to it.
I haven't.
And
I got the Cinco Permiso. What is it? The Silicion, number 7.
Number 7, the big one. The double.
yeah, the big one.
Big old.
There's a lot of Sin Compromiso because I'm actually smoking a sample liga of the Sin Compromiso that we're going to release this year. So 3 rooms, three of the boxes, we got Sins going in some version or another.
Nice.
Oh, nice. So that's something
wow.
that may come out this year, huh?
It will come out this year. I'm going to do a when I did the Sin blend, I did 2 versions of it right from the jump. I did the version that is on the shelf, and I did a version that was just a touch stronger, a little bit more pepper than the other version. And so we're going to release one of the stronger iterations this year. But
Nice.
Just in a single size. It's going to be about roughly around 7 by 50 press is about what it'll feel like. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how close is that a final blend you're smoking, or is that still a
This is actually one of the ones that I'm not going to use.
okay?
I just want to go back and revisit it just to make sure I made the right choice. So I'm really kind of revisiting a blend that I've already passed on, but I want to be sure before I start production on the others because we need to pull the trigger week 1 of March to be ready for them to be released in this summer format.
Oh, okay.
So luckily for me, Sin isn't one of those cigars that requires a tremendous amount of time in escaparates in the cool rooms. Sin, because of the tobaccos, they typically wick down in about 3 to 4 weeks. So really, 2 months is more than adequate for time in the cool room. Most Sins that you get in boxes today, obviously, considerably have more age on them, just because we're constantly making them every day. And as a result, it's very rare that you'll see a box on the shelf that has a date any younger than probably 6 months on average. But it isn't actually necessary for the blend. The blend itself really only requires about two months in the cool rooms before it's ready to be boxed.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, Lee Mac? How's it going, brother? Everybody, hi. What's going on? Thanks for tuning in. Everybody that came from the show with James Garcia and Ron Real and coming and tuning in after the show. Thanks, James and Ron, for promoting our show as well. We're live now with Mr. Steve Saka.
I never know where to look. It's weird because I want to look at you, but I guess I should look at the camera. Never figured that out.
Yeah, it's always weird. I generally just look at whoever's talking in the thing.
All right, so
Well, this is already a big hit. This is the most people we've had on a show yet. We're at 60 people.
Really?
Yeah.
That's sad. We got to work on these numbers for guys.
Yeah. Well, we're a newer show, so we're at 63. We're climbing already. Very nice.
We're normally at 2 or 3.
Hey, you know what? It's kind of, in this COVID thing, everybody's been on so many of these things.
Yeah.
I've seen ones with some really well-known, really well-established cigar makers, and they have like 16 people, 18 people. I mean, it is kind of crazy how few people. But also, I think there's a big difference between viewing live versus, how many people do you view the show after the fact?
Right.
You're going to get way more viewers then.
Oh yeah.
Well, I imagine because of this whole COVID thing, and so many people went to doing things like this, for viewers out there, it gets a little crazy trying to keep up with it all. And deciding who you're going to watch and how late you're going to stay up on a weeknight and all that kind of stuff as well.
But I don't think most people watch live. I mean, I know I rarely watch anything live. I just and I really see the video because I almost always stream these things when I'm in my truck driving somewhere.
Right.
So that's where I end up actually listening to most of them.
So I have a question for you. So you did not win the meatball competition this year.
No, I came in second place, thank God.
Second place. But who came in first? I didn't catch who came in first.
Oliver from United Cigar, and I don't
Oliver,
know his
okay.
last name because I'll mess it up. But Oliver came in first. He beat me out by a decent amount of votes. He beat me out by like 6 or 7 votes. So he definitely took it.
This was the third year, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was the third year, and much to Dave's credit, he gave me the ability to come back next year and try to reclaim the title, but I graciously said no fucking way. I'm very happy to be free of the of making meatballs. I would much rather next year buy a ticket and sit in the audience and just be a critic. I'm not a cook. I don't like to cook. I'm an eater. It was a fluke I won the first time. It was a fluke I won the second time. And it was a fluke that I came in second the third time, to be honest with you. So I'm really...
I don't think it's a fluke, man. I seen you came in first also on Half Wheel. What do you think about Half Wheel and the way they do their voting system, which I personally think it's probably the best because you get a perspective of everybody that smokes the cigar besides like Cigar Aficionado and other places like that.
Here's the way this works. You love whoever gives you the highest ranking, right? So therefore, as a cigar maker, I love the Half Wheel consensus list because I have historically done incredibly well on the consensus list. I think that, but Half Wheel, of course, they don't really want to promote the consensus list. They want to promote their Half Wheel top 25 list because that's the one that they, as editors and tasters, are choosing. I think this is, and again, I like the consensus because it's looking at about 40 different top lists. It's a combination of the magazines and the traditional bloggers and the YouTube guys and a whole myriad of places. And they have some criteria, like they don't let anyone that worked at a cigar store publish a list and count, or works in a cigar store, works for a cigar company, even if their list is completely legitimate. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're just saying, okay, we don't count any of those. If you do a list where it's like top 5 and you don't do a top 10, your points get you only get credit for the top 5 point wise. So there's a little bit of finagling that has to go on to try to make it an apples to apples.
Yeah.
Is what they're trying to do. I think as a consumer, I think that looking at the Half Wheel consensus list gives you a pretty good idea as to what the top 25 cigars are for that year, because there's so many more inputs into it, more data, because every reviewer has their own likes and dislikes and biases. So this kind of helps to smooth out some of those things. Now, Charlie, in his own defense, he would make the argument that the consensus list was more a reflection of how that manufacturer dealt with the media. Because the truth is, the better relationship you have with the media, the higher ranks you get. It's just simply, because you're not that they're biased, but you're on their mind.
You're on their mind, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I would say that may have been true when he started the list, but now that he's making the list out of like 44 different people, there's like 20 lists that he uses now that I don't know the people that make the list, never seen the people. Look, I have never had any interaction to my knowledge with you, Vic, right?
No. This year was the first time when David reached out to me, and and I was very, very honored to. But before that, I had already picked Tricky Traka.
Right. Big Tricky Traka is one of your top cigars, number one, maybe even.
It was number two.
Number two,
and,
okay.
And it could have easily been number one because it is, for me, for several months now, it's my go-to cigar. I've got one on up to bat tonight.
Yeah, but let's be real. I mean, what's number one, number two, number three, number four, number five, and probably in your top 10? We're always kind of interchangeable depending on your mood and what you're drinking and what you're eating. I mean, I can't even tell you what I think my best cigar is. You know what I mean? I just know which ones I tend to visit more often than others, but it also depends on the circumstances. If I'm out my boat fishing, I would never smoke a cigar for me. So it's a total waste of money, waste of time, too breezy. The aroma gets all carried away by the wind. You're much more likely to find me smoking a Nikkei Rita Blue or an Umbagog. Now, as much as I like the Tricky Traka, I can't hold the Tricky Traka in my mouth nonstop while I'm fishing because it gets too strong. You know what I mean? So while I might love a Tricky Traka over a blue, not when I'm fishing, because I can't keep the red in my mouth nonstop. With the blue one, I can keep it in my mouth the whole time I smoke it. So I think when you start getting into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think it's all pretty much interchangeable, and that's why
it's all good. Yeah,
consensus list is because it takes some of that out, and also for a guy like me that doesn't get rated by some places, European. Well, it's no longer called European, but Cigar Journal. Never been rated by the magazine, so I can't even make that top list. I've never been rated by Cigar Aficionado, so I'm ineligible to be on their top list. So it also takes lists that I'm never going to be on. They get added to the equation, but I'm never going to get points from those lists. But I get points from other lists. So I like the consensus list, but that's as a guy that, you know, in the last 6 times I've been like number 2, number 2, number 3, number 2, number 2, and now number 1 this year. So why wouldn't I like the list? It's the best fucking list on the planet.
Exactly. I think it's a great list. And I was actually really surprised that my channel got featured on it this year. It was a big surprise to me.
I think Half Wheel is trying to include as many people as they possibly can. Yeah. I don't think that they're trying to exclude people, which, of course, you know, then other people are like, well, why does High Desert Man Vic get the same vote as Cigar Aficionado? Because that's essentially what happens in that list. You end up with everyone else. Charlie at Half Wheel, when they come up with their top 25, he'll almost always say, well, the one that got number 1 this year wasn't my number 1. He won't say what his number 1 was, but his vote gets watered down by the 3 other editors that helped to make the Half Wheel list. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, and other lists like Coop's list is just Coop's opinion. Okay. Sure. So, and Coop puts like what, 400 cigars on his list? He has like a top 400, right? He's already announcing day 300, top 335 today, actually. I'm busting. But he does like 25, 30, right, by himself. Right. You know what I mean? So Coop's vote actually has more individual weight than, let's say, David Savona at Cigar Aficionado, because I'm sure David Savona has to split his with the other editors and taste testers at Cigar Aficionado to come up with what their top 25 is going to be. So there's no top list that's perfect.
Right.
But I think that the Half Wheel consensus list, it's very rare that you look at that list and go, huh? Why is that on the list? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't end up with these really weird outliers that you see on some of the individual lists because it requires multiple people to have ranked it during the year in order for it to get there. So I think as a consumer, I think it's a useful list.
Yeah, I think so too. I know we were at it last year, and I just found this out right before they released this one, like a month before. I didn't know what the consensus list was. And I found that out just because I randomly was searching my channel, and I was like, "What's this?" And then I called my buddy Kevin from Cigar Prop, and I was like, "Hey, what is this thing?" And he was like, "Well, you have to like, you know, sign up and make sure to see if your channel comes up and blah blah." I'm like, "Well, I'm on there, and I didn't even know about this. I never signed up."
They look for people, but if you're a reviewer out there and you're doing a top list every year, and you have to do so many cigar reviews every year.
Yeah.
You can't have any sort of commercial tie with a store, with a brand. There's some basic rules, but they're not like super stringent by any stretch. I know there's like a cutoff date when your list has to be published each year to give them time to compile the data, but they actually ask people that, hey, if you think your list should be included in our calculation, please email me, let me know, send me a link, and they'll go and look at it. I think their intent is to try to make it as inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
That's good for the list. It's, it gets it like it's called a consensus. It gets a good broad stroke reading of what people are looking at.
But I think if you look at any top list, it's very rare you're going to agree with number one. You may find cigar number 11 is actually your favorite of the ones that are on there. So I think you just have to kind of take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. If you have so many people that say the pizza over here is some of my favorite pizza, well, then it's worth going to that restaurant and getting a slice or two and seeing what you think for yourself. But the only people that take this whole top list serious is the retailers, and that's with Cigar Aficionado number one, because whatever gets number one on Cigar Aficionado just drives sales, and retailers are in the business of selling shit, as we are too. You know what I mean? So the person that gets number one beats that drum, and the retailers beat that drum. But the reality is, as we all know, there have been some number ones over the year that you're like, yeah, I can see how that one got number one. And then there's other number ones over the year you go, really? What the fuck? How's that number one? It doesn't even make my top 25 for the year.
Right.
But hey, I think that you just got to take all ratings and reviews. Like sometimes, like sometimes I love to watch a cheesy popcorn movie, right? Heck, I know that the professional film critics, they pan it, and it's basically ends up with the critic Rotten Tomatoes versus the consumer's Rotten Tomato rating. I look at that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Hey, the critics, they like literally 4 out of 10 tomatoes, but the people that are actually watching it gave it like 8 or 9. You know what I mean? Because it was just a fun, dopey, enjoyable movie. Well, you know what? I like a fun, dopey, enjoyable movie sometimes. And
sure.
It gets critical acclaim. I want to fucking shoot my brains out, 20 minutes in. When is something going to happen in this movie? I don't care about how the score is causing tension that's never going to be. You know what I mean? I'm here to watch this thing. So I think with all reviews, all ratings, you just kind of have to take them for what they are. And if you use them effectively, it might help you identify something that you might like that you weren't aware of. But I think anyone that accepts them as gospel is just making a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Right. So you're in New Hampshire, right?
That is correct. I live in New Hampshire.
So what are you fishing for up there? What, like pike and walleye, or?
Oddly enough, walleye's more Midwest, so we don't have walleye.
Okay.
Oddly enough, we don't actually have pike in New Hampshire. There's only a couple ponds. Spofford Lake, I think, has pike, and I've heard of pike and a few others. We have a lot of chained pickerel, but we don't have a lot of pike. Most of the freshwater fishing that people do here are either for lake trout or for bass. And I tend to focus on smallmouth bass is what I tend to focus on.
Nice.
So do you have wow, that's interesting. I would not have thought that you guys would have a very good bass population there.
Yeah, but great smallmouth fishery. We don't have a particularly good largemouth fishery. So like when you catch a 5-pound largemouth in New Hampshire, that's like a real fish in New Hampshire.
Gotcha.
You're far more likely to catch more 5-pound smallmouths, which are a giant smallmouth, compared to a 5-pound largemouth in this state.
And they're more fun to catch. They fight like crazy.
Yeah, they're for me, pound for pound, they're of all the fish, saltwater. I love catching snook. I think snook are a great fish for inshore fishing.
Okay.
The other thing that I really love catching for inshore saltwater is like micro tarpon. When the tarpon are still laying up in the mangroves when they're young, 15 pounds, 18 pounds. Those tarpon are an awful lot of fun to catch. And then when it comes to freshwater fishing, I just don't think anything comes close to smallmouth. Muskie fishing does, but the problem with muskie fishing is the hits are so few and far between. I mean, you can go an entire season and not boat a good muskie.
Okay.
If the place had a good population of northern pike, they would be a lot of fun. Like if I'm ever having a slow day, I'll just pull up into some of the more shallow, a little bit more still water, and I'll just bang out a bunch of chain pickerel just to kind of get a little bit of action going. You know what I mean? Because chain pickerel are so uber aggressive. They're very easy to catch.
All right, guys, real quick. Y'all seen Robert just fall off the screen is because right now we're in the middle of a winter storm here in Texas, and Robert's power just went out. And that's why you kind of see me in a shed back here, not in my normal place, is because I'm trying to keep warm with a heater. And Robert was supposed to be here, but there's too much snow and ice on the roads. He couldn't make it, so that's why he was trying to do it from home. So he might come back on, he might not.
That much snow?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you getting that much snow?
Yeah, well, actually, some spots they are us probably a few inches, but we're not used to that. We're not. This city is not prepared for something like that. So if it gets real cold or icy, right now we're at 19 degrees outside, and a lot of people are, their power's going out because it's not, we're not used to that. So
yeah, they gotta be freaking out. 19 degrees. Yeah.
Oh yeah, everybody's freaking out.
Yeah.
Hey, we got Kevin just hopped in the thing. Mr. Cigar Prop, that's awesome.
What's up, Kevin?
I caught a few minutes of his show tonight. Yeah, I sent him a message just now. I was like, "Where'd you go, man?" But I didn't. I guess that explains it. So, yeah, the first time when I first heard of the Umbagog, and you talked about it being kind of a fishing stick and stuff, I went right out and got a few of them, and we have I'm in central Arizona, but down closer to Phoenix, there's a lake that I've been fishing for years called Canyon Lake, and we've got walleye, smallmouth, and mostly largemouth in there. And one of my favorite things to do in the summertime is go out in a float tube, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, couple cigars, and I stay out there all night long, and just fish. And I haven't gotten to do it with that cigar yet, but I definitely will this summer.
It's not that so much Umbagog is a good fishing cigar. What Umbagog is it's super durable. So it just works for all outdoor activities. If it's like super windy, it smokes fine. If you're outside in the rain, it still keeps smoking. I smoke it when I'm, using the tractor to move snow.
I hear it does pretty good snow blowing as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a really, really super durable smoke.
That was a setup for your story.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to leave it alone. I just told that story on another podcast. You have to come up with new material, Vic.
That was a good story. So I need to get to my list here. I had a few questions written down for you. And of course, my thing isn't syncing. That's wonderful. One moment.
It's all right. I was late to join you guys because I couldn't get my camera to work. Been working all damn day, and as soon as I go to click in, it doesn't work, of course.
Yeah, that's how it goes usually.
I so hate this crap. I really do.
Well, so let's talk about it. What's the last year been like for you?
It's been a weird year. I mean, look, as a company, we were doing super well coming into 2020. We had almost doubled in sales in 2019, and then 2020 started off about the same. And then March came and April came, and they were disasters. COVID and shutdowns and all of that. And retailers stopped buying cigars because they just didn't know if we were on the verge of a zombie apocalypse or what.
Right.
And then by the time end of April rolled around, sales just started to pick up, and then we ended the year really, really strong. I mean, we had we posted some substantial growth last year, not quite double, but it was a really nice high double digit growth number, and
wow.
And we probably would have done more if I had the cigars, but I just didn't have the cigars because with COVID, everything slowed down. Shipping slowed down, packaging materials slowed down, getting materials from other places slowed down. It was a real challenge. So 2020 pretty much spent all of it stress eating and stress drinking and working on a lot of stuff that kept me really busy that I normally wouldn't have to deal with. And 2021 so far is started out really great. I think I posted it somewhere today that we've already beaten last February's number as of today. So
wow!
Really?
Yeah, we're already ahead of last February's sales already. The entire month we beat all of last February. Last February we had the trade show TPE. That was the end of January, so all those cigars actually got sold and shipped in February. So how this is happening is just crazy to me.
What is your top selling cigar right now?
It bounces back and forth between Mi Querida and Sobremesa. Those two. Pretty much right now, I don't have anything. An Umbagog too. Umbagog sells a shit ton.
Man, I just had the Umbagog about a couple of weeks ago, and I fell in love with it.
Yeah, we saw a lot of Umbagog. Everything is selling well except for one brand, and the one brand that didn't sell that well in 2020 was Todos Los Dias. But even that brand is selling now. I don't really know why, but it is. It's always sold, but you grow nearly double, and Todos Los Dias grew 18%. Like 18% is a great number, but it isn't a great number compared to the other numbers.
Sure.
So, I pretty much as of like last summer, I was just pretty much saying Todos Los Dias is kind of a dog. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. And now I don't know. I think I'm just going to have to leave it alone because the sales on it are even picking up. So it's really hard to figure things out, but I don't know. Is it selling more because people are revisiting it and trying it? Is it selling more because the retailers don't have other cigars of mine on their shelves because they're back ordered on them? It's so hard to really ever really know what's going on and why it's happening. It's complex. Is it because of all the top lists? It can't hurt, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Is it because I'm on social media so much? Maybe, maybe not. Social media works both ways. It can help you and it can hurt you just as much as it can help you. I think what's really just happening, I think just more consumers are becoming familiar with the brand, and they're just smoking more of it. They're buying it more frequently. They kind of added it to their rotation where, hey, they go in the store, they pick up 5 cigars, and maybe 1 or 2 of them are mine, or they like our cigars enough that now they're buying entire boxes. Oh, I love Mi Querida Pancho Largo. They buy a 20-count box. They get down to the last 4 or 5 in the box, and they're like, oh, wow, I like it enough. They order another box. That's really what you want. You want that steady consumption pattern where you end up in somebody's rotation.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin's asking if you've ever discounted a slow mover.
He didn't ask if I discounted. He asked if I discontinued.
Oh, discontinue.
Yeah. I am actually this year. I'm actually discontinuing about 4 SKUs, and not because they don't sell, but they don't sell as well as the others. And I don't want the retailer to make the wrong choice of what to put on their shelves. You know what I mean? So, like, Hey Rita, we have 2 small formats. We have Gordita, which is 4x48, and we have Pequeña, which is 4x44. The 4x48 has historically sold 3 times faster than the 4x44. So I'm going to get rid of the 4x44 because I think the retailer would do better if because the retailers that have the 4x48 and the 4x44, they're choosing. You know what I mean? They don't want to carry both of them, other than the big online guys that carry everything because it's just, heck, they have giant warehouses and they just put it on their website. But a retailer has to ask themselves, okay, if I'm going to carry a small format, which one am I going to give space to?
Yeah.
I want to take away the one that I know is not going to do as well for them, but I'm not actually discontinuing them. I'm just kind of putting them on hiatus. There's no reason to discontinue them, and I'm not discounting them either. We just let these things sell naturally as they sell because I don't have any dead inventory right now. Everything in my warehouse is being sold every single day. So there's nothing that we're having to force to sell.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
It definitely is better than the other because, look, I've been on that side of the fence too. Where you got inventory, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this crap?
Go ahead, Caesar. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, a couple of years ago, you had said that Todas las Dias was one of your strongest cigars. Is that still to be your strongest cigar? Or?
See, here's the problem with Todas las Dias. Todas las Dias is my highest nicotine content cigar. It is the one that is the strongest of all the blends that are currently in the marketplace. I can tell that by the retrohale. I can tell that because I know all the raw materials. I also find Todas las Dias to be one of those cigars that's very hard to hold in your mouth for any real duration smoking where you're like, okay, I got to take a break. I got to have that out of my mouth.
Yeah.
However, I would argue that Mi Querida Tricky Traca tastes stronger. Because
I'd agree with that.
Traca has more of a robust kind of peppery nature to it in the flavor profile, whereas in Todas las Dias, it's a much more subdued kind of sweet chili pepper that builds the more you smoke it. But so basically I have these 2 brands where when a consumer says, hey, what's your strongest cigar? Well, this one over here is the strongest, but this one over here tastes stronger. It makes it for a very confusing branding message for the consumer. And it was also one of the reasons why, as I looked at Todas las Dias, and as the numbers were, even though they were growing, they weren't growing at the pace. Mentally, I'm saying, okay, maybe not having the brand is actually better for the company than having the brand, even though its sales are growing, because of how confusing that message can be. One thing, if I'm standing in front of a consumer and I can explain that to them, but I can't explain that to hundreds of thousands of consumers across the country. And I can't get retailers to stop saying that umbagogs are segundos. So how the hell am I ever going to get them to explain this weird dynamic between Todas las Dias and Mi Querida Tricky Traca? And that's one of the things that's always in the back of my head. I mean, if you like stronger cigars in my portfolio, Tricky Traca, Unstolen Valor, Todas las Dias, and probably Naka Tamale, also in the Western line. I think those are the stronger of the formats. But I don't make anything that I would consider to be a light your hair on fire style pepper bomb currently. I don't tend to make really super harsh biting style cigars. I like making full-bodied cigars. I like making robust cigars. But I don't like cigars that punish me when I'm smoking. I like cigars that Yeah, it's just, and look, consumers, they tend to go through this thing where they get into those super high octanes, but almost invariably, after 3-4 years of going on a steady diet of those, they then dial it back a little bit and they realize how much flavor they're really sacrificing and how much abuse they're actually taking, that they themselves kind of come back down a little bit. But the thing that's good when you do that Uber Pepper Bomb is that is typically what the bloggers really like. That's what gives them hard-ons. Because, well, look, they're smoking, so many cigars that those super uber sharp ones really stand out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's not what the average consumer's smoking. The average consumer, he's lucky if he can squeeze 2 or 3 cigars in a week. And even if you're a heavy cigar smoker, you're smoking 2 or 3 a day, right?
Sure.
So those guys don't tend to really that pepper bomb market. It's a very limited kind of market. There's only so many consumers that are really, really into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of it similar to dark roast coffee drinkers. I always think they're missing so much by going to. It's really hard to do a dark roast well, and most of the time it just ends up being burnt, and you lose so much by getting away from a medium roast. But I'm a coffee guy. That's one of my things. So,
I would argue that there's a lot of medium roast coffees that are actually stronger than the dark roast coffees.
sure, yeah,
They don't look as dark. There's just something about the appeal of when you look at those super dark roasted beans, and they got all that oily sheet.
oil, yeah.
What I would argue is, but now you just expressed all the oil on the outside, which means there's less oil actually in the bean itself.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And as soon as all that oil is on the surface of the bean, it also now means that it's starting to go away with evaporation. So you're losing flavor the longer you wait to grind and drink a dark roasted coffee more than you are with a medium roasted. But I'm not a coffee expert, so.
So what's your cigar diet per day? Just out of curiosity.
Typically about 10 a day.
Oh my gosh, 10 cigars. How do you do that?
I just don't stop smoking.
Oh my gosh, that would kill me. That's awesome.
10 a day, unless I'm also an occasional pipe smoker, so I would count a pipe. If I smoke a pipe bowl, I would count that as one of the 10. But
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, some days I only squeeze in 3 or 4, but most days I'm pretty much good for 8 or more.
Yeah.
And also I'm smoking a wide variety of sizes. It's not that I'm smoking 10 of these, Churchill size cigars,
Right.
And the other thing too is I'm talking about actual. So like, I actually keep track of how many cigars I smoke a day. So like, I don't know if you can see, but I mean, here's my ashtray from like just the last 4 hours. You can see there's only maybe 1 cigar in here that I smoked to the nub. You know what I mean? One of these was, one of the ones that's the least smoked was some really helping my cause here. Sobremesa Torpedo Tiempo from 2015.
Wow.
That box in the humidor that literally had just 1 cigar left in it from 5 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, why the fuck do I have this here, man? Let me just smoke it and get rid of it. And I smoked it. It's got 5 years of age on it. I was kind of like, I'd rather smoke it younger than that. So I didn't smoke much of it.
Okay, that's interesting.
Now, you said you're a pipe smoker. I'm a pipe smoker as well. Have you ever thought about, bringing your own line of pipe tobacco?
As much as this is going to offend everyone that's listening, pipe smokers, you're cheap fucks. You just are, man. You spend, you buy tobacco. Even if you're buying on the top end, it's like $12 to $15 for 2 ounces, and then you basically smoke it 20 times for $15. for $12 to $15. I mean, no, it's that whole end of the business is not for me. I'm much happier being a consumer than in the business, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's not. And the other thing too is it's just I don't know. Look, I don't want to never say never because you don't know what the future holds. But I've been really blessed. I'm good friends with some of the most renowned pipe blenders in the country. In fact, I actually have spent some time working in a couple pipe factories, pipe blending factories. Learning from them, because there's some crossover. There's some guys out there that are really into cigars. So
Bob the cigar guy is asking, how much will that half-smoked Saka cigar go for on eBay?
Apparently too much. Every time I see something on eBay, I mean, I've seen a couple of those little stupid Saka Squatch statues. I saw one go for like 2 weeks ago for like $180, and then I saw another one go for $202. Oh. Now there's some dickwad that has one up there for like $900 or something.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, don't buy that. You find a retailer that has a Saka Squatch in stock, and buy a box of cigars. You'll save yourself a ton of money, and you'll end up with 20 free cigars, I guess. Right?
Yeah. Jeez, I wonder what that woman that stole that 3-foot one that you were mentioning. I wonder what that's going to go for
in the black market.
I have to think that she dumped that thing in a ditch.
Got tired of carrying it.
Yeah, honestly, what was she going to do with that?
And why that? Why did she go straight to that? That was a funny video.
Big is what it was. The alarm was going off. She's like, I got to grab something quick. It was right there on the counter. It was big. And I guess that's why she grabbed it. I don't know. Because, look, she didn't break into the store. The manager of the store forgot to lock the front door.
Oh, my gosh.
He set the alarm. He forgot to lock the front door. This woman was obviously just scrolling down the street, just checking doors. She got lucky. That door opened. As soon as she opened the door, because the alarm was set, the alarm started chirping, So I think she just kind of found herself like, I got to grab something quick. And because, somebody's checking doors in the middle of the night. The only reason they're doing it is just trying to find something they can pawn or hawk so they can get a hit or two, right?
Sure.
That's why they're doing it. So how the hell she ever got any money for that, 2-foot plus Saka Squatch? I just can't even imagine the conversation. She took it to a pawn shop. What would they give her for it? She took it to a drug dealer. The only thing I have a personal fantasy that some brother out there said, "Hey man, that shit's kind of cool. Yeah, I'll give you a hit for that. I'll put it in my man cave." That's the only thing. So I'm hoping right now it's in some hood dude's, apartment. You know what I mean? And it's sitting there when he's smoking his blunts. He's got his Saka Squatch. That's my personal fantasy. But the reality, I imagine she lugged that thing around, tried to sell it, and then realized that nobody was going to give her fucking jack for that. And she just pitched it in a dumpster, right? What are you going to do with it?
If she was smart, she would have put it together that it was a cigar shop. She'd go online and research a little bit and then move it to one of a cigar guy and probably sell it for $500.
If she put it on eBay, I think she would get $500 for it.
Yeah.
Really, dude. She probably would. But, come on. She has no clue. Remember, we're talking about a chick that's checking doors so she can buy her next hit. That's who we're talking about here.
Yep.
We're not talking about a criminal mastermind here, okay? This is no Ocean's 11 shit going on.
So do you mostly smoke your stuff, or do you smoke a lot of other manufacturers' stuff as well?
I primarily smoke mine. Look, I like my stuff the best. I mean, it's made to suit my palate. So it only makes sense that I would like my cigars more than other cigars. That being said, I almost always every day have at least one cigar that was made by somebody else. And normally it's my second cigar of the day. I want to smoke it when my palate's still fresh, but I don't want to make it my first cigar of the day because I don't want to waste my first cigar in the day on something that I might end up not liking. So
Okay.
I always, my first cigar of the day, I pick something that I know I'm going to be really happy with and have with my morning espresso. My second cigar of the day, I will smoke something made by somebody else. If it's decent, I'll smoke half of it. If I don't like it, I'll pitch it after a half an inch. If it's really good, I'll smoke it all the way through, you know. So it just depends on what it is. And then I have a few cigars that are just regularly in my own humidor.
Okay.
And I'll occasionally, you know, put a couple of those, 3 or 4 of those during the week into my rotation. Maybe not my number 2 cigar of the day because I already know I like the Tatuaje Black, what he calls the Petit Lancero, the one that came in the Dunbarton jar.
Yeah.
And I bought like a dozen of those jars. You know what I mean? When they came out, I liked it. So, you know, I'll smoke one of those, or I'll smoke a little Padron 1926, the little, I don't even know what that size is called. Number 46, I think. It's like a Principe size. It's like a petite Corona, you know. So I have other cigars I smoke, but the vast majority of cigars I smoke every day are the ones that I blended. They just suit my fancy.
Sure. Well, if you'll excuse me for just a moment, I'm going to grab my next cigar real quick. I'll be right back.
You don't have a next one?
Isn't he at a desk? Can't he just set them there like normal?
Yeah.
People? I mean,
oh God!
there's a real professional gig we got going on here, man.
Oh, hey, Vic.
What I miss?
Not
Yes.
at all. That's why there's a replay.
Yeah.
Throw it up on YouTube. You can watch it and give yourself a view.
There you go.
There you go.
Don't forget to give yourself a thumbs up.
Hit that bell.
You know, crazy about every single YouTube video, and I don't care who you are, there's always like 2 or 3 people that downvote them. I don't even understand that. I mean, why would you watch something and downvote it? Like, but I see it. It's like there's like certain ones, like Bob the Cigar Guy. He's got like 2 or 3 people that every video he posts, they put a downvote on it. Okay, I understand you watch it, you didn't like it, you give it a downvote. But why you go to every single one of his videos and give it a thumbs down? I just don't. Yeah. Like, don't you have anything better to do with your day than to just downvote 187?
I've had that. As soon as I post it, you know, it could be a 15, 20-minute video, and as soon as I post it, I go check to see everything's okay, and I already got 1 thumbs down. I'm like, how the hell do you watch it in 2 minutes? That's not even right. Or less than a minute. I think it's just somebody trying to hate. That's all that is.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy to me, but
Steve, I tell you, the Tricky Traca, man, I love this cigar so much, and I'm not sure what size I like. I've smoked just as many of the 552 as the smaller one, the 48.
Right.
And I love both of them.
See, I rarely smoke Robustos. I'm not a big fan of the Robusto format. Which is
Why is that?
Well, because I'm not trying to squeeze my smoking into a time limit. So for me, Robusto just means I end up, instead of smoking 8 to 10 cigars a day, I now end up smoking 14 to 16 cigars a day, right?
Okay.
So for me, it really is rare, very rare. Very rare as a Robusto my cigar choice. Now, there's certain blends, like when it comes to like Habanos, I really like, you know, like the Ramon Ione Specially Selected. That's a Robusto format, or Pargas Series D number 4. That's a Robusto format. So there's certain blends that I'll opt for the Robusto because I actually think the blend really does well in Robusto format, but almost all the cigars I light are 6 to 7 inch cigars, or they're they're like 4 to 5. But very rarely do I light a. If I'm going to smoke a wider girth cigar, very rare would I smoke a Robusto. I would almost always smoke a Toro.
Okay. Yeah, I used to say that my favorite size was a 5.5 by 54. You couldn't find them very often, and when I found it, I just loved that size. But I've become more of a fan of the 6 by 54, the Sublime size that Crown Heads does.
Right.
And stuff. That tends to be. I find now that I'm always looking for cigars that are around that size.
And the truth is, any retailer or any manufacturer is making 5.5 by 54, just because they don't have long enough leaves to make a 6-inch cigar. Because if they had enough tobacco to make it 6 inches, they would make them 6 inches, because consumers pay you more money for the 6-inch than for the 5.5 inch, and it's really no extra work, barely any more materials. So when you see a brand that has a lot of 5.5s, it just tells you that they don't have a lot of larger wrapper to work with, and that's the reason why they're going with a 5.5. Or if they have a large portfolio, they'll have a 5.5 to try to make best utilization of. Can't quite make a 6. Don't want to make a 5-inch, so I'll make a 5.5 with these. So it's a combination of one of the two. They either have so much that they want to best maximize it, or they don't have enough large leaf to kind of cap themselves at 5.5.
Kevin Corbleys is asking, what's the outlook on the Silver Mesa Blue? I'm not sure what.
I think the outlook is very sunny.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing really good for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I think probably the question he's asking for is, when am I going to be able to buy more of it? And you should be able to buy Silver Mesa Blue relatively easily in the next 30 days, because we took delivery of a large lot of 1,000 boxes.
Oh, wow.
I didn't take them. They have to be aged a year. So I basically skipped my December and my January delivery of blue. So that gave me 400 extra boxes. My February blue would be 600 boxes. And I'm a little bit ahead of pace. So it allowed me to actually have a lump sum of 400 boxes, of 1,000 boxes, because we have so many back orders from retailers that I just decided it'd be better to try to get them out and give everyone. But the downside will be is once the 1,000 boxes goes, there will be no delivery of them in March. And then when I get to the end of April, I'll be back to the 200 box schedule. And then later in the year, I should have a large group of cigars that I might be able to do another 800 box, 900 box pack out towards the end of the year. But no matter what I do, it's just always going to be relatively limited, because they have to have a year of age on them. And I know everybody's like, well, make more, but that's only when it sells. Once it stops selling, then what the hell do I do with them? I'm the one that absorbs all the risk. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
And you can't use today's sales numbers to determine what should I be making today to sell for a year. So I have to manage it. And I see Noel's question up on the screen. The answer is there a chance of a second Vitola? Yeah, possibly, but not in the near future. I mean, why do I want to add more? I got to age it a year headaches when I can't keep up with the one cigar that I age a year ahead. You know what I mean? So I'm just adding more problems to an already problematic situation.
Okay.
And I know, look, consumers want what consumers want, but at the same time, I always have to think about things practically and from a business perspective and what makes sense. And right now, introducing a second size of Silver Mesa Blue makes 0 sense whatsoever. I mean, even just regular Silver Mesa Brulee itself, just this week alone, I've had 3 consumers ask me, hey, have you discontinued the brand because they can't find it anywhere? We haven't discontinued the brand. We've been sending out thousands of boxes every month. It's just I guess they're just turning that quickly. So,
if you can't find them anywhere, I mean, I'm just saying, if you go to blacklineluxuries.com, you'll probably find it there. I seen it there yesterday. So you guys are looking for it. That's where it's at.
And they are out there, but you do have to poke around a little. There's somebody that has blue in stock all the time. We've been shipping blue pretty steady. We just can only ship what's got a year of age on it. There's very rarely a month that goes by. So like when we first launched each annual Muestra, there's normally like a 3-4 month gap before we start to replenish the Muestras. Sober Mesa Blue, like I said, I intentionally forced a gap December, January, so I could get a nice lump sum, so I could try to clear out a lot of these old back orders simultaneously, because retailers get mad at you that, well, why did Joe get blue and I didn't get blue? You know what I mean? And my answer is, well, because Joe ordered his blue 5 months ago and you ordered your blue 2 months ago, and I'm just taking them in order. But when you have that conversation over and over and over, it's just easier to say, fuck it. I'm not shipping anybody blue for a couple, 3 months. So that way I can do one nice healthy shipment. Everybody has a shot at getting it. And in the end, it turns out I still didn't have enough. So I'm still not going to be able to fulfill the back orders on blue. And we still haven't opened up blue to the vast majority of our accounts. I don't
really.
Yeah, I mean, originally we were going to give it to every Brûlée account, but we've never had enough cigars to even offer it to all the accounts. So pretty much what we do is we just don't solicit for orders on it, and if a retailer asks, we add them. We take the order, but if they don't ask, we don't mention it.
So you see, James, he's from Blackline Luxuries. He's asking about Costa Rican tobacco.
Yeah, I have a cigar that is going to be released this Saturday, a limited production. It's a Sample Liga that I started working on in 2016. It actually has a Costa Rican Morón in it. What Costa Rica Morón is it's primarily a wrapper crop, but it's based on a hybridized San Andres Negro seed that they grow down there. They grow it as wrapper. But like all wrapper crops, not everything is wrapper quality. So I just started taking some of the Corona leaves and using it as a Ligero component in a blend I was working on back in 2016. And I don't know. It was just one of those blends that no matter what I did, I was never satisfied. I actually got to my 38th variation of it. And then I finally said,
wow,
screw it, just ignore it. And I left it alone. And then Abe just said, hey, do you have anything special for my guys for the digital experience? I said, let me look at what I got kicking around. I'm like, oh, hey, you know what? I have this blend. It's never been released. It's got a unique tobacco in it. Let's just make we didn't make a lot of those cigars. We made 210 count packs. So what is that? A couple thousand cigars.
Sure.
And that's got Costa Rican Morón in the filler recipe. So it'll be interesting. I actually have to say the cigar's pretty damn good. So I guess, sometimes being removed from something for a couple years, because these aren't like these are cigars that were made 2 or 3 years ago. This is the blend that I stopped at 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
We made a new batch of them literally on December 10th.
Wow.
The last day the factory was open in December. Last couple days, we banged through these 2,000 cigars. So it'll be interesting to hear what the feedback is. I don't know. Something different, something unique. It's great cigar, but I think the only way you can buy it is if you have a ticket to the digital experience, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're limiting it to like one per person. And I already had a conversation with Abe. I don't know that he'll sell through them, to be honest with you. So there may be some after the digital experience. I can't promise, but I don't know how many digital experience tickets he sold. But even if he sold, let's say he sold 2,500 tickets. I mean, how many people are going to want that weird Saka exclusive? You know what I mean?
It'd probably be surprised. There'd probably be quite a few people out there that'd be looking at picking it up.
Yeah, there'd be people that want it, but the point is they had to have bought a ticket. And I think I'm like one of the last live guests, so Fuente's special thing would have already come up, and Rocky's special thing would have already come up, and whoever else thing would have already come up. So by the time it gets to me, they may not have any money left.
So what's going to happen with the pulpita? I wanted to try that.
Yeah, right now I'm out of Popetta. I have maybe just a few bundles. We primarily have been using it as an event only or a promo cigar. It was designed to be an event cigar, but because 2020 there were no physical events, we started letting our retailers using it as though they were going to do a virtual event. They could give Popetta as you buy 20 cigars, you get 5 Popetta. I have more Popetta made. They're going to be out of stock for a couple months, but then they'll come back into stock. But I'm gonna keep it event only. I have no interest in selling Popettas.
Event only, okay. Oh, that's kind of a bummer. It was one I wanted to try, but it's that's a mixed filler, right, or short filler, something like that?
It's a combination, but I mean it's made from the table trimmings of Mickey Rita, Tricky Traca, and Umbagog. So they're doing the long fill production of all 3 of those cigars, and they're cutting. They're doing the tuck cuts, they're doing the breaks. All that leaf is getting scraped into the tray, and then we take all of that leaf, and then we hand sort it back out because we don't want to use all the ingredients of Popetta. And then we take those ingredients, and then we thresh them to a certain size, kind of converting them to like a long short filler. Okay, it's not short filler as you would normally have. It's a little bit heavier texture, cut thresh size. But then when we actually make the blend, there is a long leaf Basse leaf that's used in the blend. So there's actually some long leaf tobacco in it, and there's also then this thresh tobacco that came from some of the tobaccos that we use in Tricky Traca, Umbagog, and Mickey Rita production. So,
interesting.
It's a great, spicy, peppery little cigar, but it's something that's impossible to make as a launched product because I'm not going to take perfectly great long filler tobacco and chop it up to make Popettas.
Sure.
So
that makes sense.
Popetta production is dependent upon Mickey Rita, Tricky Traca, and Umbagog, just the same way as in the beginning. Umbagog was much harder to get because the broadleaf I had was much more attractive when I was, needing less and less of it or less quantities of it. Now we make so many Mickey Rita, we make so many Tricky Traca that I'm buying so much more broadleaf that there's broadleaf that doesn't make the grade for those. There's more of that broadleaf. So now we can make Umbagog on a more steady state production item. Whereas 4 years ago, when I first started with Umbagog, we might only make Umbagog once every, 3 months. We'd make them for a month. We'd run through that wrapper. We'd stop for 2 months. We'd build up wrapper. We'd, make another 2 weeks, stop for 6 weeks. So that's kind of the way it is with Popetta. Popetta is essentially a byproduct for all that filler. So I can't really make it a brand because I'll never be able to supply the demand.
Interesting. So what do you think about the industry outlook for this year?
I have no clue what's happening. I mean, last year was a weird year, so you have no way to know what's going to happen this year. I mean, initially, from what I'm seeing here in the first couple months on our end, it looks like we're going to have a great year. But this time last year, I would have said the same thing, and then March happened. And we were down 70% in March from the previous March. And April was a repeat even worse than March. But then we got to the end of the year, and it turned out we had fantastic sales. So it's also topsy-turvy. I think one thing, though, that we'll see as consumers this year is I think there will be more new cigar brands and blends launched this year than there have been in a long time. Because I think the way that court decision came down in August from Judge Mehta's court didn't solve the FDA problem. It really just kicked the can down the road. It
Sure.
kicked the can probably at least 2 to 3 years, maybe longer. So I think what you're going to see is I think you're going to see an influx of like so many new things for consumers to try this year. I think it's going to be one of the craziest years ever. It's going to make it tough because, I think you're almost going to get forced to either accept lower sales or you're going to be forced to put 5-6 new things into the marketplace. You know what I mean? So I'm not putting 5 or 6 new things in the marketplace. It's one thing when it's a one-off, limited production kind of thing. But I'm not launching 5 new brands. That's not happening. But I already know there's companies that are planning on launching somewhere between 5 and 8 new brands in 2021. It's going to be a really, really crowded market in 2021.
Well, so that's a good segue into my next question. Is if you look at the market now, the last the last couple of years, compared to say 5, 6, 7 years ago, what is your take or what are your thoughts on just how many brands have come out and how much?
Well, look, in an average year, not counting 2020 because it was a weird year, but most years we have 300 to 500 new product introductions to the handmade cigar marketplace. I mean, now, I don't think that most consumers see the vast majority of them. I don't even think you guys who pay attention see most of them, but they do happen every year. The reality is almost all of them are DOA. They're dead on arrival. They're lucky if they get any initial sales, and even if they'll get, and even on brands that do get a lot of like love and a lot of awareness to them, most of them they sell well when they're brand spanking new because everybody wants to try whatever. But most of them end up ultimately failing. I would say that the average shelf life of a new brand these days, it's about 2 years, but it's not even 2 years. It's really only about a year. And the only reason why it's on the shelf for 2 years is it takes the retailer an extra year to get rid of the product they bought 2 years ago that people weren't really getting into. I mean, it's a very weird thing. Consumers say they want the best and high quality and attention to detail and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what they tend to buy. They tend to just buy whatever's new. So you just take something new, you put it in a box, and it's like instant sales. I could take a dog turd, roll it in a leaf, and I'm guaranteed to sell 7,000 boxes of it, even though it totally sucks. You know what I mean? And then guess what? I can do that again next year, and I can do that the year after that. And consumers reward companies that do that until they eventually wear out their welcome. Okay, and then eventually go, down. But it often takes a lot of years before consumers finally catch on and they realize it. So, the way consumers shop actually rewards people for making these kind of brands and blends. I mean, we all know them. I mean, think about how many cigars that are released. You get them and you smoke them. You say, wow, that's a damn good cigar. And then you revisit it 7 months later. You pick up a new one off the shelf. And like, this isn't anything like the one I smoked 6 months ago. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, if you're willing to do the long slog, okay, you can get a customer that will become a consistent box buyer and will rely on your brand as to be one of their favorites. The problem is that's very hard to achieve because you're always competing with whatever's new every year, and you're trying to make it sell enough that the retailer will keep it on their shelf long enough to give it a chance to take off. I mean, look, every brand you launch always does this and then it hits a peak, and then it does that. And then the question is, when it's doing this, does it continue to keep going down and fade away, or does it hit a plateau where it kind of stabilizes, where there's enough people that like it? And then the next question is, okay, it hits this plateau, then does it start to slowly come back up? Every single brand I've launched, that has been the pattern. They all go up, they all go down, because by next year they're competing with all the other new stuff. They hit a bottom, and then the question is, where is that bottom? And in my case, everything has hit this plateau and then has started to grow. The only one that wasn't happening was Todos Los Dias. Todos Los Dias kept getting smaller and smaller, but for whatever reason, now it's starting to take a turn up just a little bit later than all the other ones did. And I mean, it takes about this to this to this to that. That's about a 3-year cycle.
Wow.
You need about 3 years in order to go through that for that to occur. And the problem
That's hard
is
to do.
retailers aren't willing to be that patient because they know they can just buy something new and slap it on a shelf, and it doesn't matter how crappy it is because they're going to sell it. So it makes it the market makes it very difficult for you to make consistently great cigars sustainably. But when you do it, you then end up with having Padron Anniversary. You end up having an Oliva V. You end up having a whatever. Back in the day, a Macanudo or a Tiamo or an H. Upman, that's what you end up getting. But it's a very hard path to do it. And it's a really hard path for a small company to do it because you're so cash flow dependent as a small company. You saying that, hey, I'm going to manage this brand properly, knowing that at 3 years I'll have an idea as to what it can do. That's just not something that's awful hard to swallow for most small manufacturers.
Well, and that I imagine really comes down to, like you said, really managing. For a new guy, there's got to be a temptation there to, when you get something out, you need that cash flow, and if it starts going really good, you want to start putting it out to answer the demand, but then you're possibly compromising your product.
Right, you're compromising the quality. You're also, I would make the argument that a lot of companies, they get something that's successful and they just instantly pounce on it to capitalize on its success. They actually don't allow these things enough time to breathe. I mean, just think about it. A program like MASH would have been canceled in today's society.
Yeah.
3 years for MASH to become the MASH that we all know and love and was so witty and ingenious. You know what I mean? Everyone is so focused on the immediate part. And the problem is, handmade cigars, it literally just takes forever. To do them right takes 3 to 5 years. I mean, 38th variation of a blend I started working on in 2016, and I didn't feel good enough to put it in a box yet. Sin Compromiso required a pilot crop, then a test crop before we even got to the real crop. You know what I mean? It took 5 years before the first Sin Compromiso actually ended up in a box from the beginning that product was considered. I mean, doesn't John Huber right now, he has something that it's like 1,000 days, right?
Mil Diaz, yeah.
Mil Diaz,
3 years. So.
From the point of conception to the point of, hey, you can now actually buy it. And the problem is consumers say they appreciate that, and some do. But the reality is, if you just make any things, throw it in a limited edition, whatever, they'll give you your money and you don't have to do any of the work.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
You're talking more from a perspective, though, it sounds to me like from people that are actually taking part in the manufacturing in some capacity, the blending, what I'm trying to get at is, what do you think of all these brands, all these just brands that have come out that they really don't have anything more to do with the cigar other than picking out. There were I don't know, 10 different blends on a shelf, and they smoked them and said, I like that one.
But the vast majority of the cigars that you guys buy are done that way. I mean, cigars the factories do all the work. They send the blends up in Ziploc baggies with letters on them, and they get smoked in a conference room amongst a few people. If you're a larger company, they focus group those cigars. They do, so many focus groups and so many taste tests, and then they try to dial it in. I'm not a believer in that, but also I have the luxury because I'm not trying to support $100 million a year company. I don't have 2,500 employees whose paychecks depend on, whether I sell X or I sell Y. You know what I mean? So it's easy to be on my high horse and be mighty when I don't have to deal with any of the ramifications. A perfect example is, when I was at Drew Estate, we had Liga Privada in the beginning. Liga Privada sales were dick. We did 200 some odd thousand the first year, 270. Second year we did 400 something. Third year we did 800K. Nobody's paycheck at Drew Estate was dependent upon Liga Privada. It didn't matter. Okay, and that's like we didn't put a single T52 out for an entire year because the wrapper wasn't quite ready. You know what I mean? But you can do that when nobody's paycheck is dependent upon it. Well, now when you have a brand you are selling $15 million wholesale of, and look, I'm pulling that number out my ass, guys. I don't have any real number, but I mean, when you have a big brand like that, you can't. It's not as easy to take those kind of positions. You know what I mean? Because literally, you've got probably 400 families that are depending on that cigar being made, being bought, being sold, being smoked. So it's a much different scenario. I just know that in the long run, if you can endure the front end and really establish a really good brand, you will be rewarded for it. But it takes 10 or more years to get to that point. It's not a short path. Wow. And you're going to need at least 3 or 4 to even know if there's a hope of that even happening, is how long it'll take. You can't base anything on the first couple years' numbers as a long-term outlook as to what's going to actually happen with a brand.
Wow, that's interesting.
Like, for example, Brulee has never started to go down yet. Brulee is still doing this. I've never supplied enough Brulee to the marketplace. So I've never hit a point where there was a reasonable level of saturation. So I don't know, are people buying it because they really love it, or are they buying it because they hear other people love it and they're just trying to get it so that they can try it? You know what I mean? So I don't have any sort of like real numbers on Sober Mesa Brulee, and it makes it really hard to plan what you're going to do. Going back to the Liga example, we had that brand, 270, 400, 800, 3 years of data. In year 4, the brand took off. Between year 3 and year 4, we could have sold $5 million worth, $5-6 million worth of Liga Privada in year 4. But why would I have tobacco ready to go? I had 270, 400, 800. Optimistically, let's make enough cigars for 1.6 million, maybe $2 million in sales, right? That's still very aggressive, saying, hey, we're going to double up in year 4. But in year 4, we could have sold easily 3 times that amount. But why would I make that cash investment? Why would I take that risk? There's nothing in the math that tells you that's going to happen. And then, of course, when it does happen, it then makes it even more in demand because you don't have the ability to produce it as fast as the market's consuming it, which then gives you it literally takes, from that point, it would take a minimum of 2 to 3 years to get to the point to meet that current immediate demand that you have. You know what I mean? It's a really weird thing. And to answer your question, I'm I'm opposed to the V cut all the way around. I know that everybody raves a consumer question here. She's asking straight cut or V cut. V cuts are the bane of my existence as far as I'm concerned. V cuts, it's hard enough to get a cigar to draw right. And now I got to worry about how something does the V cut and whether the V cut, if they have a shitty V cutter, whether it cracks the head or it doesn't crack the head. And what you really want is you want to have as much of the surface area of the cigar open, in my opinion, as possible. So I think a traditional flat cut is the best cut always. That's what I think. Okay, because if I started making cigars with the intent of it being V cut, I might change the way I do the blend a little bit, make it a little bit less dense, a little more spongy. You know what I mean? And my cigars tend to be heavy. They tend to be firmly packed. I want the draw to be really good on them, but I don't tend to make light, underfilled, spongy cigars. It's just not something that I like. And those, they tend to work better with a V cut. So, in my opinion, I would never V cut, which is terrible because retailers love selling V cutters because nobody has a $110 brand new V cutter. So it gives them something to sell. But the truth is, I think the traditional, open, flat cut is the best cut.
Okay. Well, you guys heard it there first.
Yeah, but it's your fucking cigar, so if you want to cut it with whatever, the table saw, go for it, right? You like the way the V cut smokes, then hey, V cut.
Now, earlier, Bob, the cigar guy, had asked, what is your favorite pipe tobacco that you smoke?
This is where I'm gonna get in trouble. I actually blend my own.
Oh, come on. I gotta get some of that, man.
Yeah, I'm
blend your own.
There's two. I don't want to name the names, but there's like two major manufacturers of pipe tobacco in the United States, and I happen to be personal friends with the head blender at one of them. So he sends me materials, and he sends me materials, and I send him cigars. And
nice. That's awesome. Little bartering going on there.
But I tend to answer the question of more to give some answer to it. I tend to lean more towards that English style blends. I tend to lean more towards a mixture of a yellow and a red Virginia, with maybe a touch of burley and a pretty heavy dose of Latakia.
Okay, wow.
Perique for me just depends on my mood. I have certain blends that I make that are a little bit Perique heavy. But I mean, if we're just talking about like what's available, like out on that anyone could buy, I'll tell you some ones that I think are really good. I think that the standard old traditional Dunhill tins that are all made by Peterson, I still love early morning and I still love nightcap. I think
that's the early morning is one of my favorite.
Yeah, early morning's fantastic.
Yeah, I love both of those blends. From Cornell and Deal, I really love. I like their Deacon's Downfall a lot. I guess that's actually two friends because I think it was made with Pease and Jeremy Reeves working together on that tobacco. But I think Deacon's Downfall is an excellent one. I think their Pirate Cake is an excellent one from Cornell and Deal, but you have to really be into Latakia because that's like a 75% lap bomb style blend.
Wow.
But quality Latakia, so it's not as rough as many of the other lats that are out there. So even though it's got such a high concentration because they're using such high quality leaf, it's actually quite good. I tend to I don't tend to smoke a lot of aromatics. There's only about 4 or 5 aromatic tobaccos I smoke on the regular. And another one's actually Cornell and Deal's. They have one called corn cob pipe and a button nose. I really like that one. It's like a cubed burley blend. It's got a really nice kind of hot chocolate aroma to it.
Oh, nice.
That I like. But all the aromatics I like tend to be the lighter aromatics where they're not so heavy. You know what I mean? Like I like some of the Navy Cavendish blends where they'll have just a touch of rum added to them, but it isn't where it's all. I don't like tobacco that's all gooey and sticky and syrupy and I don't have much of a sweet tooth. So, and that's with most of the aromatics. Everybody loves Lane 1Q. I mean, it's probably the number one selling pipe tobacco in the world. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy, Sutliff's vanilla custard. If you're into aromatics and you like vanilla, I highly recommend you buy some vanilla custard. But for me, it's just too sweet. You know what I mean? It just doesn't suit my fancy. And another pipe tobacco that I know is really popular amongst the geek crowd is I like some of the stuff that comes from the Seattle Pipe Club. I like their plum pudding, but I actually like their barrel aged plum pudding, so it has a little bit of bourbon in it.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, that one's a really good. But I mean, that's a heavy, dense tobacco. That's not meant for the casual pipe smoker. All the Seattle Pipe Club stuff is all pretty hardcore and kind of unique, esoteric kind of stuff.
I'm going to check them out.
Well, I was kind of glad to hear your answer on my question about I don't know what you call those brokers or broker style, or I just feel like.
Yeah, but it's true with everybody. I mean, it's no different with the big corporations. I mean, there's very few people that are really hands-on. That the person that you identify with the brand is actually the person working on the brand. You know what I mean? I think with Foundation, I think Nicholas is integrally involved with his products. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not a lot of them out there, and I would also argue doesn't matter. Because somewhere in this chain, there is somebody that really is, and they're really doing the work, and they're really doing the job. So if you like it, you like it. You're happy with it. So does it even matter? Maybe you'll never know the name of the guy that really did the work, but is that really relevant in the long run?
Yeah. Well, I can appreciate what you're saying. I just feel like I feel like there's just. We've come to a point of saturation, and
Yeah, but we've been at a point of saturation, Vic, forever. I mean,
it has been a long time. That's true.
The handmade cigar market has been relatively exactly the same for the last 2 decades. Since the end of the boom and the bounce back from the boom, we've been roughly importing the same number of units on average every year. Went down a little bit in 2009 after we had that economic upset. It was down a bit in 2019. That was just because everyone was overproducing and shipping too much into the country. You know what I mean? 2020's numbers are going to be high because if you were employed but unable to go to work, you were smoking on your back deck. That guy that might have squozed 2 or 3 cigars into a week, he was now able to smoke 2 or 3 a day. So the 2020 numbers are going to be crazy. I'm not the only one that did well in 2020. A lot of folks did well in 2020. But I mean, the consumption has been between 320 to 330 million units a year on average for the last 3 decades. So we've always been at market saturation. And that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to launch a brand and to get it to be ultimately successful, because the competition is incredibly fierce. And look, and the big guys, they hate giving up shelf space to little people like me, because every cigar that I sell is one less cigar they sell. And the sad fact is, they're right. That is what it is. That's the way it's been for a very, very long time. So while we all are just because we're cigar smokers, you always have this kind of sense of camaraderie. Or we're probably in one of the most vicious competitive product market segments that there is on the craft end of things.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
It's tough. I mean, retailers, there's thousands and thousands of brands and choices, and retailers only have space for maybe 400 to 800 boxes of an average humidor you have open.
So what's planned for Muestra de Saka this year?
I'm a little behind the curve on it because we would have normally been launching this year's Muestra de Saka now. But because I wasn't able to travel to Nika until just recently for the first time, that blend never got finished. So literally this last trip down was the first time I had a chance to touch it. So it's probably going to be somewhere towards the fall of this year when this year's Muestra de Saka will come out. And currently it's slated to be a blend called Krakatoa. And it is, the intent is for it to be a more peppery kind of cigar.
Okay.
But ultimately, I can't promise you that it will be Krakatoa. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll never be satisfied with where I am on Krakatoa, and Krakatoa will have to be pushed to another year. I mean, I have right now about a dozen different Muestra blends that are done and in the can.
Oh, wow.
So the easy thing would be to just pull one of those and call it a done deal. But I don't know. I want to do Krakatoa. So I'm going to keep working towards Krakatoa being the goal. But if I can't get to Krakatoa, I'll pull out one of the other ones and we'll do that. They're perfectly good. They're perfectly ready to go. But I like how Krakatoa is so different than the other. I like the Western style to be very different, and the Krakatoa is very different. So I kind of like to go down that path this year if possible.
So that project and that name is reserved for that spicier version of the.
It has to be spicy, right?
Sure.
I think you call something Krakatoa if it isn't Krakatoa, right? I mean, you know.
So what do you think of David's question here?
Well, we're definitely not a big company. We're a very small family company. In fact, I think that a lot of people, there are a lot of things that the large companies can do that I'll never be capable of doing.
Such as?
Look, I can't do the level of events. I can't do the level of swag. I can't do the level of, you know, I can't do all. Like, I'll give you, for example, I decided this year to advertise on Half Wheel. It's the first time I felt like the company was large enough that we could afford what it costs to advertise on Half Wheel. So I'm a graphic designer. Here we are. It's February 15th, and I basically paid for 45 days worth of Half Wheel that I haven't had an ad on it because I haven't had time to make the ads to put on Half Wheel.
Oh, wow.
I'm the blender. I'm the tobacco buyer. I'm the graphic designer. I'm the guy that does all the stuff. I'm the production planner. You know what I mean? I'm the intellectual property attorney. I'm the head bottle washer, and the guy that has to scrub the bathroom too. So no, that's not true. I haven't scrubbed the bathroom in a long time. But I have so many different things that I have to do that I can't get to it all. I don't even know really. I mean, I think by today's standards, we would be considered a boutique company. But that whole term boutique is just so fraught with what does boutique really mean.
It's lost its meaning, yeah.
I mean, look, when we started making Liga Privadas, we were making them in a factory that we were making 2 million cigars a month and 24 million a year. But we were only making, 70,000 Liga Privadas. How much more boutique do you want to get? You know what I mean? I mean, that's incredibly boutique. So I think it's more just kind of a buzz term I think that in our market, if you're a company that's doing less than $5 million a year in sales, I would consider you to be a small company. And I think you become a mid-sized company when you get somewhere between $10 and $20 million a year. And I think you become a large company when you start crossing into that about $45 million to $50 million a year, maybe 30, 35 million a year kind of threshold is kind of where it's at. But
that's interesting because I mean, you look at that compared to other industries. That's actually a pretty small.
We're a small industry. I mean, we're
small industry.
We're a $1 billion wholesale industry, and of the $1 billion, 350 plus million of it goes to the government taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole handmade cigar business on the manufacturing end, it's worth $650 to $750 million a given year. It's not at all what people think it is in any stretch whatsoever. So, I mean, I think when you get about a 10% market share, you're like a really big company. I think you're then in the area of Altadis and STG and Davidoff and Drew Estate, those companies. When you can start to get an 8, 9, 10% market share, that's a big company in our business. And look, there's a lot of little cigar companies out there that they're lucky if they do $100,000 a year in sales. There's a lot of little brands that get some love. That's a guy grinding from his basement. You know what I mean? And not anything away from the guy, but I think that sometimes the consumer. That's the problem with social media. Social media makes us all look equal, but we're not.
Okay, sure.
I can have as good a social media presence as a company that is literally 8 times my size. But at the same time, they have 3 people that can answer DMs and PMs and follow up on customer email. And I'm getting 100 private messages a day, and I'm lucky if I even see them all, much less respond to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just physically impossible. So we're definitely a small company. We have a long way to go before I think we'll be even a mid-sized company.
Smoking Preacher asks, which blend are you most proud of so far? That's probably a tough question.
And I think it's probably Sin Compromiso. I think Sin Compromiso, it's got, a really unique tobacco in it that, that nobody else has. And we had to develop that tobacco specifically for it. And I think that Sin is this weird cigar that is really flavorful, but it's also really smooth. And it's very rare that you get that much flavor and depth out of a cigar that's really essentially a medium plus kind of blend. So I think from a technical standpoint, it's probably one of my best blends ever. I think in the Western Saka, the one I'm most proud of is the Naka Tamale, because Naka Tamale is a really tough cigar because in Naka Tamales, there's only 2 tobaccos. It's the exact same tobacco that's the wrapper as the binder. All of the filler is just one tobacco. There's no variety in that cigar whatsoever. So you're trying to make a cigar that's worth smoking and is interesting and is intriguing and engaging, but you really have basically 2 ingredients. You have lobster, you have butter. You know what I mean? That's all you have. You got a steak and you got a grill. Go to it. And some salt. So I think that Naka Tamale is technically a rather interesting cigar because I think Naka Tamale can hold its own against cigars. Like my regular Sober Mesa has 7 different tobaccos from 7 different farms. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It's got like 5 different nationalities in it. It's got 7 different seed varieties in it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in a cigar like that. Whereas Naka Tamale has tobacco from, 2 tobaccos. So I find Naka Tamale to be a much more difficult task. I mean, from a tweaking point of view, I put a lot of time and effort into the original Mesa. But I mean, in the end, what I think is technically superior ultimately doesn't matter because it's just going to come down to whatever the consumer ultimately likes to smoke. And I can answer this in a very dramatic way. Of all my blends, if I had to only pick one to survive on, it would be Mickey Rita Blue.
Really?
Yeah, Mickey Rita Blue is it's a cigar that meets most of my cigar needs. It's strong enough, not too strong. It's robust enough. It's durable outside. So it's good to smoke when I'm working, but it's also good to smoke if I want to sit down with a bourbon and relax. I mean, it's a very versatile kind of cigar. It's not my most intricate. It's not my most complex. It has no rare materials in it other than the fact that the broadleaf. And it's not that the broadleaf is exactly rare. It's just the quality of broadleaf that I have available and that I use makes it rare. Yeah, I probably, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go, okay, I'll take blue. You know,
Interesting.
blue would be the one, you know, because I can smoke. Look, that's the same basic blend that I've been smoking for 30 odd years. Connecticut broadleaf, Nicaraguan fillers, medium to full in body, earthy, chocolatey, robust enough that I find it strong enough as I'm smoking it, but I don't find it overwhelming. I mean, that's really, Mickey Rita is a retake on Liga Privada number 9, and Liga Privada number 9 was a retake on the cigars that Frank Yanisa used to make at the Cofradía Villazon factory back in the late 80s, early 90s when he was making El Rey de Mundos and Punch and Hoya de Monterrey Maduros before they got bought out by STG. Same thing, those original La Gloria Churchill Maduros, that Ernesto Perez Carrillo used to make down on Calle Ocho. I mean, that particular profile for me, and the one profile that 3 decades later, I still like that profile today. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I haven't become bored with it. I haven't become tired of it. It's the one thing that I can always go back to. Yeah, I really like the way that tastes.
Well, going back to what you said about the Liga and the first 4 years on that cigar, how does a company like Drew Estate or any other company that can do that? How do you decide after, say, the second year, this is a project worth keeping up with until it takes off? How do you know you have something that's going to reach those higher numbers?
Luckily for us with Liga, because it starts so small, we always had the sales to justify the growth in the brand. What we didn't have was we didn't have any idea as to what was going to happen between year 3 and year 4, that it was all of a sudden going to become the brand. You know what I mean? It was going to become so quick. So I mean, look, you live on your sales numbers, but ultimately you also, I mean, sometimes there's certain things you have more faith in. You're like, hey, I'm going to put more time and more effort into it. But it's I don't blame companies. It's very, very hard. And you also, I mean, most companies, even the successful ones, they're lucky if they have 1 or 2 brands or blends in their stable that really account for the vast majority of their sales. You know what I mean? I mean, I can guarantee you, all the Olivas, it's Via Milano, right?
Yeah.
You look at Drew Estate, it's Acid and it's Liga Privada. Not that they don't sell a boatload of other cigars, great numbers. And look, if they sell more Undercrown by Tuesday than I'm going to sell all my cigars probably the entire year. You know what I mean? But in the end, it comes down to Acid and Liga. You know what I mean? Is what it comes down to.
Right.
With Tatuaje, it's Tatuaje brown and black. All the other stuff, La Riqueza, El Triunfador, Cabawan, you name them. He's had a bazillion great cigars over the years, but the only one that consistently is on every shelf is brown and black in Tatuaje, and then Monster Series, of course. Okay. So, I mean, most companies are lucky if they end up with, 1 or 2 like really established core selling blends is kind of what you're hoping that what ends up happening. And a lot of times I think some companies are too quick to give up that they have something that's really good. But I understand why they have to give up, because they know if they focus on what's new and they start promoting and talking about what's new, it's going to get them the numbers that they need to just stay in business. And I think that's one of the things that the business has to be healthy in order for the cigars to be good in the long run. If the business isn't healthy, then it becomes impossible to make consistent quality cigars in the long term, because of the amount of investment that you have to make.
What do you think of Bob's question here?
I think they're stupid. Will I ever
Sorry,
make
Bob.
one? Probably, because you end up making all this crap eventually. But the reality is, it's a gimmick cigar. Who the hell wants to smoke? I mean, you got to underfill them so they don't smoke right to begin with. You underfill them so that you can then twist them, and then you twist them. Yeah, it's a cool little presentation, but I mean, you smoke a Calibra, and it's not exactly a very enjoyable experience to smoke a Calibra. It's basically an underfilled cigar that looks like it went through a lawnmower or something. So I just I've been in thousands and thousands of stores, and I don't know that I've seen a Calibra being smoked more than a couple dozen times in the last 30-odd years walking into a store. So it's kind of one of those, you make it a limited release, here's a Calibra, you make some quick money, and you move on. You know what I mean? There's no money in a Calibra, for God's sakes. No money, there's no consumer. I've never met a guy that says, I only smoke Calibras.
Sure. Yeah, it's a gimmick.
Yeah,
I think it's more than a gimmick, but it's I think it's more the novelty of it.
It's a novelty item. It's the same thing with all this barber pole nonsense. It's all bullshit. That's what it is.
Oh, good deal. So there's no barber pole in Dunbarton.
I'm not saying that I won't ever make a barber pole. I'm not above doing bullshit. But I mean, the reality is it's bullshit. I mean, but look, because there's consumers that love barber poles. They love the experience. They love the occasional, but you just don't meet people that like, this barber pole is the only cigar. It's not like there's a guy out there that's like, I only smoke barber poles, and his humidor's full of barber poles. And he buys a big barber pole. When he runs out of that box, he buys a new box of barber pole. It's just kind of it's just kind of dopey as far as I'm concerned.
Well, so have you had a barber pole cigar that you really enjoyed?
No.
But you've had barber poles.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And the thing is, the way the barber pole is working is you are getting it depends on how you construct them, but most people are putting a complete wrapper on the cigar, and then they're laying another wrapper with gaps on top of that wrapper to give you that barber pole look. And in the end, I don't think it affects the taste that much. I would actually be much more interested. Now, I would argue that a Tapa Negra actually makes more sense to me. Okay, that's where you have like the top couple inches of different wrapper tobacco than the rest, like Jorge Nicaragua Cabaneta, because that tobacco is the tobacco that's constantly in contact with your palate. You know what I mean? You're getting the flavor that comes from that while it's not burning. Look, broadleaf has a very appealing flavor in your mouth.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I know for the people that like Kentucky Fire Cured, that Kentucky Fire Cured tobacco doesn't burn for shit, but you can wrap it up on the head so that way the consumer can get the taste of what that Kentucky Fire Cure is in their mouth without, it actually impacting the burn of the cigar. So the Tapa Negras, in my opinion, I can actually see where you can blend a cigar where that has an impact and makes a difference. But the barber pole stuff, I think it's nonsense. But that's me.
Yeah, I for the most part, I mean, I like checking out new stuff and I like experimenting with different things, but for the most part, I'm just a traditional Parejo sort of guy, and I would say that the broadleaf, the San Andreas, that sort of stuff is mostly what I go to.
And let me say this: I come to this snotty opinion after having smoked 100,000 plus cigars. It's not like I didn't go through my barber pole phase. It's not like I didn't go through my Calibra phase. It's not like I didn't go through my Lancero phase. It's not like I didn't go through my Candela phase. I've been there. I understand. I was guilty of buying them too, but 100,000 cigars later, Candela just tastes like green shit. It's bitter. It's not that good. I don't know why anybody wants to smoke it. I don't want to smoke it. But it doesn't mean that I haven't smoked, hundreds of Candela cigars. I have over the years. So I'm just as guilty as everyone of buying these things and smoking these things. But at this point, I only want to make cigars that I actually like. I want to make sure, look, I need to sell them. I'm in the cigar business. So sales are important. Let's not kid ourselves. But they're not so important that I'm willing to make a shamrock cigar just so I can sell an extra few hundred boxes of something.
Right.
And just not my cup of tea.
Oh my gosh. The first Candela I smoked was a Thompson house blend or house brand.
Iguana?
The Iguana years ago.
Yeah, you and everybody else smoked an Iguana.
Oh, I got so sick. Man, I'd never been that sick in my life. It just about killed me.
But look, there is a consumer out there that loves that shitty, bitter, green, grassy, hay-like Iguana flavor, and good for them. There's an Iguana cigar, and it's cheap too. So if you like it, even better. It's not even that expensive.
Right.
Look, I wish I loved the taste of Candela because I'd save a fuck ton of money. It's so simple. Candela, I mean, you throw it in the barn, you throw on the propane burners. 72 hours later, I'm pulling tobacco out of a barn that I can instantly put on a cigar. I mean, there's no fermentation. There's no curing other than the hot cure in the barn for 72 hours. I mean, basically, you're looking about a week's worth of time from start to finish, and bam, you got Candela wrapper. There's no benefit to aging it because that shit don't age. Okay, so you're only putting it in a bale, so just because you can't use it all at the same moment. But there's no benefit to bale aging that stuff at all. So I mean,
yeah, but
I wish I liked it. I wish more consumers liked it because it would be great for us as cigar makers, But hey, it is what it is.
But there's a big difference between the Iguana and something like the Wasabi.
Right, and there are some. Look, I'm not a Candela guy.
Sure,
Cigar, but yes, is a cigar like a Wasabi a much better Candela? Absolutely. Are there some Candelas out there? You can make the argument that the one that Roma Crap puts out, I'm never gonna get that Formaggio, whatever that is.
Right.
I would argue that one tastes better because it's a really strong blend. It's really kind of hiding the Candela wrapper.
Okay.
What I mean, is the reason. But that one's a palatable Candela. I can see why a consumer say, "Oh, I like that Candela." You know what I mean? But for the most part, it's like the only people smoking Candelas are 80-year-olds that just haven't passed on yet. Candela's a wrapper from the 50s and 60s. You know what I mean? By the time we got to the early 70s, Candela was already pretty much going out of favor, and it's primarily become something that's in the mass market segment. And even the guys that buy the mass market segments aren't buying Candela the way they used to buy Candela.
So was the Candela cigar back then in the 50s and 60s a good cigar?
I don't know because I wasn't alive. in smoking cigars at that point, but they were popular in the United States. I mean, that's where the term American market selection comes from.
Right.
That always identified the jade, light green style cigars. I mean, look, people 20 odd years ago, they wanted their Connecticut shade to be super light, golden hair and color, right? And I actually think the darker brown grades of Connecticut shade, taste better than the super light fine grades of Connecticut shade. So, but look, the market's always moving. It goes through these waves. Like right now, Connecticut broadleaf, super sexy. Everybody wants it, right? Connecticut broadleaf used to be a wrapper that you found on cheap bundle cigars because Connecticut broadleaf kind of rough, kind of a little bit too robust. They were still trying to blend cigars that were Cuban-esque. Cuban cigars tend to be milder blends. They tend to be a little bit more floral. They tend to be a more delicate style. All the big cigars from the 80s going into the mid-90s were that Dominican style of blending. So you had a lot more Connecticut shade cigars. We've kind of progressed into this thing where the heavier, fuller body, the Nicaraguan tobaccos have really kind of reset the marketplace and what the American consumer wants. And now that's true even of the international consumers, because the international consumers who 20 years ago, 1% of the handmade sales, 2% of the handmade sales were non-Habanos. Well, now internationally, we're probably pushing into 35% is non-Habanos internationally. So, I mean, as these patterns change, as consumers' likes and dislikes, we on our end, we have to move with the times. Because if you don't move with the times, you end up eventually fading away. I mean, you guys all today, people smoke Macanudo, and they're like, why did anyone ever smoke Macanudo? Well, it was a much different market, when Macanudo was king of the hill back in 1989, 1992. You know what I mean? It's not what we didn't have. We didn't have anything made by Pepin Garcia. We didn't have any Hoya Nicaragua Antaños. You know what I mean? We didn't have the Florida Dominicana double Ajeros. I mean, Lido used to make mild Connecticut shade Dominican style cigars. That's what Lido made, because that's what the market at the time. I mean, Fonseca, not the new Pepin version of Fonseca, but
right.
1010, Fonseca 22s. Those were super duper popular cigars that used to fly off the shelves. I mean, you couldn't sell a Fonseca 5 years ago. Nobody wanted a Fonseca 1010. Nobody wanted a Fonseca 22. Not because they weren't good, not because Manuel Quesada somehow lost the secret of how to make them right, just that the palate had moved. It's look, when I was a kid, you go to the potato chip aisle. It was potato chips, barbecue potato chips, and sour cream and onion potato chips. Those were your I go into the potato chip aisle, and now it's like literally I'm like deciding the fate of the world, trying to decide what flavor of potato chip am I going to put in my cart. It's like you just have these overwhelming amount of choices, and they're so diverse. And some of them are, we now have potato chips that literally just light my bunghole on fire if I eat the thing. You know what I mean? That never would have sold. Look at the way bourbon has gone. I mean, the standard bearer for bourbon was always super smooth. You know what I mean? No burn. Nobody wanted bourbons that were. They didn't want bourbon that was 90 proof. Much less now people are seeking out 115, 118. You know what I mean? We're in this trend of where everybody's seeking more extreme flavors.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, I find myself regressing. I find myself going, man, that damn Blanton's is pretty good. That Maker's Mark 46. I still like that an awful lot. I still like the regular old Basil Hayden. And I would choose those bourbons. They're in my top 15 bourbons. Not as sexy as talking about this new small batch bourbon made by this guy with two heads that only has one leg, and his grandfather was a moonshiner, yada yada yada. We go through these phases, and eventually it'll end up working. And It's just one of these things. And maybe, I see the comment by Cigar Head, maybe 100 proof will be the new standard. I mean, but time will tell. We won't know that answer for probably another 5 to 10 years. I mean, look, Bud Light is the #1 selling light beer. I have no freaking clue why. I think the stuff tastes like shit.
Yeah.
I'd much rather look, and I'm not the beer snob guy. I'll take a can of Miller Lite any day. Okay? But for whatever reason, Bud Light just doesn't suit my fancy. But it doesn't make it not the #1 selling beer in America. Bud Light's the #1 selling beer in America.
Interesting. So, what cigar between the Sober Mesa Brulee and the Brulee Blue?
Yeah.
Which one do you think is, for you, which one's the better
I like
cigar?
The blue the best. The blue has a little. The blue just has. It's kind of a weird thing. The blue is a little stronger blend, but it gets tempered because it has a year of age when it ends up in box. So I don't know that a blue ends up actually tasting stronger, but the material in the blue is a touch richer than the material that's in the regular Brulee.
Is it because you dip it in your urine, or?
No, those I rub on my used undershorts. That's why. There's a little more earthy quality to that one.
You get that sweet flavor right there in the tip.
Of all of the Brulés, I probably smoke more Brulee Toros than even blues, and I could choose to smoke more blues, but I find that the Brulee Toro suits me more times than not.
Adam, thanks for joining us tonight, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, I seen your message a while back, wondering why everybody was saying that you had dipped or something.
Yeah,
with the blue.
What I find so weird about that to me is we're at the trade show. We gave away like 1,500 Brulés, and not one single person came back to me at the trade show and said something. It was like,
really?
like 3 months after the cigar had been released that discussion even came up.
Well, I reviewed it. I reviewed it a couple of months ago, and that's the first thing I tasted. And I had totally forgot about what you had said about, being sweet on the tip. And when I tried it, I was like, whoa, it's got a sweet tip. What's going on here? I mean, it tripped me out.
I actually don't adulterate that. It's just, and the thing that you can tell, what I always say to consumers is, just buy a box of any of the Brulés and just put 12 of them, smoke 12 of them at the same time, and you'll notice that level of sweetness kind of varies from one to the other.
Yeah.
You'll sometimes get one that like you can detect no sweetness in at all when you're doing the cold draw, and you'll get others that you can really detect it, and it really just depends.
Yeah.
And if I was sugar tipping them, they would all be consistently the same all the time.
Well, This one I just smoked right now, I didn't taste any sweetness off the tip at all.
Right, and other people are going to smoke a Brulee Blue, and they're going to say it's there. I ultimately don't care.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I kind of like it was probably part of what helps the brand sell so well. Just the whole conversation about it. I mean,
yeah.
In the end, it just comes down to, do you enjoy the experience or not enjoy the experience? Let me say this. I'm under legal requirements to do ingredient submittals. So if I was sweet tipping it, I would have to disclose that I'm sweet tipping it, because I'm not going to lie to the FDA to sell a few extra cigars. And if I were to sweet tip something, I would just tell people it's sweet tipped. I'm not a cigar snob in that way. You know what I mean? There are some things that I smoke that people are going to probably be surprised that I smoke them. I'm not saying I'm an acid smoker. That one never suited me. But I mean, I'm not a purist in that way. Look, people like what they like. Nat Sherman's portfolio, 50% of the cigars they sold was the Host. Tons of Baccarat sold every year. Tons of Sweet Janes. Sweet Jane right now, Leather Rose is one of the best-selling brands in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, those are sweet tip cigars. You know what I mean? And if the materials are good and the blend is good, and you're not using the sweetness as a way to hide bad materials, and you're being honest with your consumers about what it is and what it isn't, I don't have any grief with it in any way whatsoever. You know, I can only tell people what I am doing, whether they believe me or not. It's entirely up to them. You know,
It seemed to me that after it released and you guys smoked it on the Cigar Authority show, it seemed like that's when it really sort of became a topic and everyone was talking about it so much.
It was right about then. I think what's his name from La Florida Minicana gigged me on it. You know, why? I'm sorry. Why? John Carney. He's absolutely certain that I sugar tip it. So,
yeah,
he made a big deal on Cigar Authority. But I mean, even if you saw, I don't know if you saw the Happy Hill Top 25 when they named Sober Mesa was their number 4. Not on it turned out to be, I think it turned out to be number 4 in the consensus too, but it also turned out to be their number 4. And 2 of them said it wasn't sweet tipped, and one of them said it absolutely was sweet tipped.
Yeah.
So there you got 3 people. This is what they do. They review cigars all the time, and they can't agree on whether it is or it isn't. You know what I mean?
right.
And I think that was kind of one of the things I found really fun about the whole STFU project that I did this year was, you know, having cigars in there that, you know, some were sweet tipped, some were single sweet tipped, some were double sweet tipped, and some were not sweet tipped, and it was the exact same blend. And then just seeing could consumers pick out which was which. Only about half the consumers got it right.
Wow.
And to me, it was very obvious which was the single and which was the double. I mean, painfully obvious, but like everybody responds to things differently. Some people think jalapeno peppers are too hot. Other people eat them like M&Ms. You know what I mean? Everybody's perception and threshold and how they detect and how they sense things is entirely unique and independent. So it's one of the reasons why, just because everybody's telling you Sober Mesa Brulee is a great cigar, well, yeah, it is, but it might not be a great cigar for you. You know what I mean? You can only ultimately make that determination for yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, you can't look. It's like there's a reason why there's Pepsi and Coke.
Yep.
And you still got RC Cola and about another billion other colas out there. You know, there's a reason for it. So,
what about this question from Brandon?
I don't know whether that'll happen this year or not happen. I want it to happen, but ultimately, look, I'm behind the gun. I mean, I got to spend 10 days in Nicaragua for the first time in 10 months. And I normally, you know, prior to COVID, I was in Nica every 4 to 6 weeks, you know, and so I don't know that I have plans. They're on paper. I have things I'm working towards, but deadlines are meant to be broken, right? Kind of like when it's ready, it'll be ready. You know, nobody ever remembers fast. Everyone just remembers whether it sucked or it didn't suck.
Right.
So if I get the bento box done this year, great. But if the cigars in the bento box suck, then I'm hurting myself. So if it takes me a few more months to make sure that all the cigars are perfect in the bento box, then so be it. So I don't really have the only thing that's absolute is that the current things that we're making, I'm going to continue to make and try to meet demand on as much as I can. When it comes to everything new, it's only once it's actually done in a box and delivered and landed in the United States, then here it is.
And is any of that stuff that's planned? Is it done, ready to go? It's just you're planning on when to ship it, or is everything still?
Some things, but there's a lot of stuff that's in flux too.
Okay.
You know, like I'm pretty sure like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm smoking one of these Paladin de Saka. This is one of the blends that I ultimately did not go with. It's not the one I selected, but this one now has about 9 months. No, actually, this one has about a year of age on it. So I kind of wanted to revisit it with a year of age on it. Make sure that the blend I picked was the right one. And so I'm smoking this one here, and then I'm going to smoke this one next, which is the one that I chose ultimately, just to make sure that after a year's time, yeah, the blend I chose is the right one. But I don't want to start making it. I don't want to do what I had to do with Intrepido and come back a year later and say, "Oh, I really should have done it a little different." You know what I mean? It's just easier to get it right the first time around than to have to go back and fix. I don't even know if fix is the right thing, because a lot of the things that I think about, I probably sometimes OCD myself into stagnation when it comes to blends. Because when you get to something like the EX, and I'm on my 38th iteration, and there have been no major tobacco changes since about the 14th iteration, I'm really just nibbling around the edges and I'm tweaking myself to absurdity. You know what I mean? And so probably had I released it when it was blend 18, it would have been great. And blend 22 was great, and blend 27 was great, and blend 38 is great. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're so close to it that I find myself that sometimes I chase my own tail on certain things.
Okay.
Other things, I narrow in on them really quick and really fast. Things just fall together just right. And I mean, where I don't need to make a ton of different samples. I know exactly what it's going to be and how it's going to taste and how it's going to boom, and I can get there in a relatively short order. Other things like Now Leave Me the Hell Alone Lancero, I made so many different variations of that stupid Lancero that the factory literally begged me to stop making samples. And I still made 10 more blends after that before I finally put the one that's in the box now. Does it mean that the few dozen before that weren't good Lanceros? I don't know, but I wasn't happy with them until I got to that point.
So you really mix everything to your palate, to what you like.
Yeah.
And that's when it becomes a product that you'll consider putting out.
I don't focus test anything. I don't give a fuck about anybody else's opinion. Well, let me tell you why. Because everyone has a different opinion, no matter what you make. You know, well, I wish it was spicier. Oh, I wish it was more earthy. Oh, I wish it was this. I wish it was that. You know what I mean? You end up chasing yourself around in circles, you know? So, and in the end, I'm the guy that ends up having to live or die. I'm the one taking the financial risk. So my attitude is I want to make it the way I think is best. And then in the end, it's up to the consumer whether they like what I do or they don't like what I do. But if they want to be blenders, the Rog was there. You can go. Nothing's preventing you. You know what I mean? You can go make cigars. You know.
What do you think of David's question here?
I don't know the answer to it. I think it's going to be, look, if 2021 is a repeat of 2020, I think supply is going to be short this year too. I mean, if the numbers keep doing what the numbers have been doing, I think 2021 is going to prove to be a difficult year. At the same time, most of the factories right now are cranking because they're all trying to catch up with the amount of back orders they have for a lot of different brands. So it may go the other way. We may find ourselves repeating 2018 over again, where there was too much product, you know, and then you end up. It's one of the things that I try to prevent is I like things to be made steady state. I don't like things to be done in batches. You just make better cigars when you make the same cigar every single day. So you have a pair, they make one blend in one size And that's what they do every single day. Sounds boring to you, sounds boring to me, but actually, that's what they like.
Really?
Because look, they get paid on the quality of each piece. It doesn't pass quality control, it gets rejected. So they don't like to change. They don't like to
Yeah, that
work
makes
with
sense.
different materials. They're used to working with lighter materials. They want to work with light materials. If they're used to working with heavy material, they like to work with heavy material. And the same thing, the way rolling a Lonsdale, bunching a Lonsdale in your hand feels significantly different than when you're bunching a Churchill. It's a different hand feel. It's a different amount of pressure. It's a different level amount of tobacco. The positioning's different. It's a whole other thing to learn. And look, they're getting paid per unit, so they want to do something. If they're making the same thing every day and they get themselves into a groove, they end up making more money. And ultimately, they end up making better quality cigars. When you are taking a pair and you're constantly bouncing them around, oh, you're going to make this size today, you're going to make that size next week, you're going to make this blend this month, you're going to make that blend next month. You don't get as good as cigars. That's one of the weird things about the whole limited production, limited release thing. I would make the argument that the first 4 weeks of any production are sometimes the worst of the cigars. They actually get much, much better once you get into week 4 and week 5, and the pairs start to get it down. You know what I mean? You get a much higher quality, more consistent product.
So, have you had the J.C. Newman American?
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to ask you because I don't know if it's changed, but at least at initial release, there were only 2 rollers making that cigar, and that's why the production was so low, because they wanted to do it the same every time and stuff. But I think that's a fantastic cigar. And when it came out, I thought, wow, this is a really expensive cigar. Today, it doesn't seem so expensive, but it's an excellent cigar, that's for sure.
I'll have to try one, but they never hang around the stores long enough because the supply is so limited on them.
Yeah.
I don't think enough people have tasted the American for us to have any idea as to what the actual market is for it. I think the American is still in its I'm trying it phase for most consumers.
So do you think there's a possibility, or is there the potential that it could get scrapped?
We should ask J.C. Newman that question, not me. How would I know? I have no idea what their intent is with that brand. I know they put a lot of the marketing material.
Yeah.
I mean, they put a lot of effort into it, but also, look, part of that's also they're thinking about it from a political point of view of trying to show, why this FDA regulation is, really kind of anti-American and anti-business and how it hurts people. You know what I mean? Because it is kind of, look, I employ a lot of people, but most of the people I employ are in Nicaragua. And when you're a congressman, you couldn't give a flip about the people in Nicaragua. You care about American jobs. I'm glad that's the way they feel about it. But ultimately, that does make a difference. So having an all-American product, with Jeff and Florida Sun grown, even though cigars aren't made in America. I mean, some of them are. But, I mean, having something like that is good. Look, when I was meeting with Congress senators, they didn't realize that tobacco was actually Connecticut's top actual agricultural crop. They're just completely oblivious. They had no clue that, physically the size of the growth is small, but the dollar value was actually Connecticut's highest agricultural export is tobacco. You know what I mean?
Huh.
None of the congressmen and none of the senators from Connecticut were even aware of it. Even though I was showing them the state of Connecticut's own statistics that they publish every year. So this affects you in a way that you just don't realize. So having a brand like the American, it helps to call attention to that fact.
Huh. Gosh, what's that say about the congressman and stuff for that state?
Well, it says the same about all of them. 90% of them are idiots.
Yeah, they're just
Yeah,
not
that's
paying
the one thing
attention.
you learn when you deal with them is that it's really a bunch of 20 to 24-year-olds that are really running these crazy people. It's all the staffers, these people that are the actual senators. And I'm not saying all of them, but yeah, I would say 50% of them. You're like, how did this guy get this job?
Right.
30% of them are like, really not that impressive. It's only like 1 out of 5 that you walk away going, oh, that she was pretty sharp. He was pretty sharp. About 1 in 5. The rest are kind of moronic. It's really very disappointing.
You know anything about this rapper that Guillermo's talking about?
They grow tobacco everywhere. So I mean, I don't know specifically what he's asking. I would need more details. I mean, you have the 4 primary growing regions. You have Ometepe, Esteli, Condega, and Jalapa. But then there's quite a few of us that use tobacco Nuevo Nueva, which is just a little bit. I always get confused. That's west of Condega.
Okay.
Think about it visually there for a moment. Look, I know that right now there's a lot of people growing a lot of hybridized seeds in Nicaragua. There's a lot of people growing Connecticut broadleaf seed in Nicaragua.
Wow.
If they can get into that market because they can't get the supply they want from the United States. I mean, there's a million projects going on at all times, and as you get more factories involved in farming, they are always trying to come up with something unique that they can use in their individual cigars, where there is no incentive for the grower to make. There was no reason. Had I not funded Sin Compromiso, there would be no Sin Compromiso wrapper. Period. Because there was no incentive for the farmer to do that. You know what I mean? So I had to provide the cash to make that happen. And so when you have people like Abdel Fernandez and AJ Fernandez, and you have Pepin Garcia, as they and Nick Perdomo, each of them have substantial growing operations, some larger than others, but all of them are growing more and more. They're going to continue to come up with new things because they want to have something that differentiates their round and round product from the other person's brown and round product. So there'll always be something new. When there isn't something new, I'm in an industry of liars and thieves, so we'll just say it's new and give it some name. Bing, bam, boom. I mean, because I would argue that 99.9% of the consumers can't tell the difference anyways.
Sure.
I mean, there's so many cigars. It's always amazing to me. I'll read a blog, a reviewer will love the cigar, and then 3 months later, I'll still review another cigar, and I know it's the exact same cigar with just a different band from that maker, and they love the first one and they hated the second one, vice versa.
Huh. Wow. So did the Sin Compromiso, did that, once that released and it became what it is and stuff, did it become an easier pill to swallow for the farm to?
Oh, look, the farmer, it's always been an easy pill for him. I gave him the money. I was the one taking the risk. He just thinks I'm an idiot. But yeah, no, I mean, no. He grows more of it today than he's ever grown before, and he'll continue to grow more into the future as the brand grows. But I mean, the farmer's not going to take a risk on your behalf. You're going to front that. Just the same way as a cigar factory isn't going to take. Look, cigar factories have certain genre of cigars that they make. They have certain flavor profiles that the vast majority of their cigars are.
Okay.
You go and get a cigar made at Pepin Garcia's place. 85% chance it's going to be a peppery, spicy cigar. Because that's the style of cigars that Pepin makes. And as a result of it, those are his best sellers. So as a result of that, the tobaccos that he buys, the way he ferments, how he ages them, what he decides to grow is to satisfy what his needs are, which is primarily spicier style cigars. So if you want to go into a place like Pepin Garcia and you want to make a super creamy, mild, subtle, smooth kind of cigar, it's not that Pepin Garcia isn't capable of it. He's a very competent cigar maker. He's absolutely capable of it. But he doesn't have all the materials just lying around to make that kind of cigar on a sustainable, regular basis. Because it isn't what they invest in. Now, when Botín Garcia says, hey, I want to make this, and he decides for his own company that he's going to do it, he will then take the financial risk of bringing those materials in, cultivating those materials, changing the way he works them to create that style cigar. But he's doing it for his own company. He's not going to do it for the guy that's really just getting the cigars made at his factory. You know what I mean? You kind of it was one of the challenges, when we got Sobra Mesa made it right in Nicaragua. At that point, Hoyt Nicaragua was basically making cigars that taste like Antaño. Stronger Antaño, medium Antaño, milder Antaño, but they always had this same characteristic flavor running through them. So in order to make a cigar like Sobra Mesa, it means that I have to bring them different materials that they aren't used to working with, and then that financial risk has to be mine, because it isn't as though if they have those materials and the cigar doesn't ultimately sell. Well, what are they supposed to do with all of these materials that they don't use in any of their blends? It's not part of what they do as a style. Now, obviously, in the last years, Hoya has tremendously expanded out. They're making cigars like, Cinco de Cádiz or Numero Uno, and a wide variety of much different blends. They weren't making any cigars with San Andreas Negro wrapper, 15 years ago. They weren't, you know what I mean? They didn't make a single cigar in the portfolio that they were doing that with, So, it's one of the things that when you're in a factory, certain factories are good at. They're all the same, but they have different inventories of leads that they sell. And that's going to kind of determine what ultimately gets made there. I mean, look, when I smoke a cigar from Tabasa, regardless of what the brand name is on it, I almost always know, this is from Tabasa, because it has that agranosa tobacco leaf flavor that is, they grow the vast majority of the tobaccos they use in a lot of their own blends, and they have a very distinct kind of flavor profile. And so while I may not be able to tell whether it's a Warped or an Elway Wednesday or a Dion this or that, I almost always can go, oh, well, this has been made at Tabas, because it has that distinct kind of flavor that you see in a lot of their materials. That's also the reason why, for consumers, if you find that you really enjoy X from a particular factory, well, then the question is, well, what else does that factory make? What are the Y? What are the Z? What are the other brands that are being made in that factory? There's a reason why people get locked into what they like.
That would, that's interesting. And you're right. I mean, I generally, I'm not a pro or anything, but I generally can taste Aganorsa tobacco and say, okay, that tastes like an Aganorsa stick, or whatever.
It's like Cuban cigars. I mean, you can light a Cuban cigar if you're familiar with them. It's very distinct. Oh, well, this is Cuban. It has a very particular flavor profile. I mean, Padron, their tobacco has a very particular flavor profile. It's very identifiable. Hoyt and Nicaragua Antaños, they have a very identifiable flavor profile to them. It's very consistent across the board. So you can kind of pick up those notes and have an idea of where it was made and what it's made out of.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, we're gonna have to cut it off here.
Fine by me.
Man alive, it's been awesome having you on.
People watching live now, probably. I mean, we've been out here for like 2.5 hours.
We've been 2.5 hours, yeah.
We had to have bored the living crap out of everyone at this point.
No, I mean, we're still at 51. We reached 76 at our high point. So tonight was a big success, and
good.
and it was really, we were all excited to have you on the show and get a chance to talk to you face to face and stuff. It's it just adds a different element, from watching all the other times you've been on the videos. I've seen you on Coop and all that stuff, and now you're here, and so it's very cool for us.
Way better here than any place else. Way better.
Well, it's been fun, and it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Steve.
Thank you, Caesar. I appreciate it. And, you guys, you have a great night, and thank you for the invite, and hopefully we'll talk again in the future.
Awesome,
Absolutely.
brother. Everybody, thank you so much for staying on this long, and thank you for your support. You guys have
everyone have a fantastic night. Thank you, everyone that hung around in the chat and stuff. We didn't get all the questions, but I tried to get as many of them up there as I could. And Steve, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, guys.
God bless, guys.
All right.